A group of rogue police officers, at least they've been reported as rogue police officers in Venezuela, have attacked the Supreme Court in the country. Now, of course, there have been a number of protests in Venezuela due to rapid inflation and also the inability for individuals to provide for their families. Food is being rationed, and so people are taking to the streets to protest against Nicolas Maduro and his dictatorship. And in the process of all of this, interestingly enough, there was a group of police officers who decided to rebel against the government and move forward with this attack on the Supreme Court. Now, to be absolutely clear, it is unknown as to whether or not someone or anyone has died as a result of this attack, but this story has twists and turns. So hold, I'll give you the details and all those twists and turns in just a second. But before I do so, let's take a look at one of the videos that surfaced of this attack. You will see a police helicopter dropping grenades on the Supreme Court building. Let's take a quick look at that. So that was one of the videos that surfaced on social media after the attack. But there are a lot of weird, questionable things coming out of this story. For one, the protesters, at least some portion of the protesters in Venezuela, believe that this was an action that was taken by Nicolas Maduro himself in order to justify some of the hideous actions that he has taken against these protesters. Any type of opposition is being squashed. People are being met with significant violence. Anyone who opposes him has been met with violence. And so as a result, they're arguing, no, this was totally staged by Maduro in order to justify the violence. Another interesting component of this story is that Oscar Perez, the cop at the center of all of this, was actually a Venezuelan movie actor. And he would do like these Rambo style movies where he would be like this Venezuelan hero. So I don't know if that is something that you should keep in mind as this story develops, but that is something that Reuters just reported. Another thing to keep in mind is that Oscar Perez released a video in regard to this attack on the Supreme Court building. Let's take a quick look at that.
Del equilibrio y en contra de este gobierno transitorio criminal. Tenemos dos opciones: ser juzgados el día de mañana por nuestras conciencias y el pueblo, o a partir de hoy librar de este gobierno corrupto a nuestra gente. Somos guerreros de Dios y nuestra misión es vivir al servicio del pueblo. ¡Viva Venezuela!
Come on, man. I don't know. If that's for real, that is one clown coup. This is the second clown coup we've had in the world very recently. The first one was in Turkey, where they're like, I don't know, we kind of do a coup, and we'll totally botch it. And oops, the leader got away, and then we're all arrested.
Right, but look, I think with Turkey, it was a genuine attempt at a coup. In this case, I don't think that it was an attempt at a coup. I think that this was, if you believe the story on its face and you don't, I don't know what's gonna come out from this story because it's a strange one. And the more I read about Perez, the more questions I have about what's really going on. But in this case, apparently the Supreme Court is doing the bidding of Maduro, and people are angry about it, and so they're fighting back in questionable ways, and this would be one of those questionable ways. Just to give you some more details on that, let's go to graphic 7. The Supreme Court has become a focus for these rallies, chiefly because its bench is stacked with allies of the president who are seen as doing his bidding. So look, just because Oscar Perez did these Rambo style movies or whatever, it doesn't mean that he's not an opponent of Maduro and this isn't a genuine act of protest. But I didn't get the sense that they did this because they thought it would like take down the government. I think that they did this to show their opposition and to show that they want to, rebel against the government and fight against what they're doing.
Okay, there is something super, super, super fishy about the clown coup, and so
it's not a coup.
Okay, no, but it is referred to as a partial coup. There is no partial coup. You either do the coup and you're in charge, or normally you either get arrested or killed. But somehow they were not able to capture this guy. Like, given that he was an actor and a producer of the movie Muerte Suspendida, Suspended Death, these guys like this Steven Seagal of Venezuela, okay, now that might be too much. He's probably a small actor in Venezuela, whereas Steven Seagal is a very large actor here. Anyway, you do a video where you look like ISIS. Everybody else's face is covered, but the one guy who then turns out to be kind of an actor / producer, he drops a bunch of bombs that doesn't hurt anyone, but is used by the government to say that's it. Our enemies are brutal and terrible and trying to kill people, etc. And then you do this clownish video. It's nothing about this feels right.
Yeah, I agree with you, which is why, I'm hesitant to really do any real commentary on it because we don't know all the facts. We don't know what's at play or what the intentions are. We don't know if this is something that was staged by Maduro. We don't know if, Oscar Perez is being genuine in what he's doing. The only thing that we do know for sure is that these protests in Venezuela are very real. The human suffering in Venezuela is very real. And the factors that led to this, it's not just one thing, it's not two things, it's a variety of factors, including this incredible dependence on oil and oil alone. The importing of all products rather than making those products in the country. The overspending on some social programs, and you guys know I'm in favor of social programs, but there is, a fine line, and I think that they went too far and didn't save enough money for when oil prices would drop. Those are all real things, and people are suffering. It's just important to keep in mind that when you have a government that's being opposed and being opposed aggressively, they're gonna do shady things in order to justify the violence that they're gonna launch against these protesters.
And look, and it's even more complicated than that, because if you know the history of Latin America, you know that the US in the past, and by the way, wealthy people within those countries, have done incredible propaganda against governments that do serve their people. Now, that historically has happened. In the case of Maduro, it's a very complicated situation, but it appears that no, he has greatly miscalculated on the economic front, and now is, according to what we believe are independent and neutral observers, arrested people, even tortured some of the protesters, and there's some people that are missing. Now, if that stuff is true, then it's a very clear picture of what he's doing wrong. But I just finished the book, The Devil's Chessboard, about what the CIA did in Latin America before. And they would plant stories in places like the New York Times. Now that was decades ago, okay? But in places like the New York Times where they would make up stories like that about the people they wanted to depose so they could get rid of them and go back to taking all of the natural resources of that country. Now, they did that so many times, it allows a guy like Maduro now to say, oh, they're doing that to me too.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it's so hard to know who's telling the truth and who's not. And then you add this extra madness with dropping the hand grenades from a helicopter that no one ever saw again and wasn't caught. My guess is, again, we could at best suss out some things that make sense and don't make sense. You're telling me if this guy was actually doing some sort of violent action where he was trying to kill Maduro's allies, that it wouldn't be Maduro's #1 objective to go get the guy?
Right.
And he did a press conference where he basically said like, oh, we can't seem to find a helicopter, right?
Right, he referred to them as terrorists and
of course, he's outraged and we got to take decisive action, but where's Steven Seagal? I can't find him. We're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks. You power this show. Together, we built something amazing. We've broken stories like the Donna Brazile story the mainstream media wouldn't break. We built the studio, we built this network. It's now #1, all thanks to you guys. Let's come build it even bigger and stronger. TYTnetwork.com/join.